Some nights, the question of purpose does not feel inspiring at all. It feels like a quiet ache that waits for the room to go silent. It can feel as if everyone else has found their reason, while you are left listening for something that never fully speaks. But what if purpose is softer than you were taught to believe? Welcome to Starlit Science Stories, where the day is allowed to loosen and heavy thoughts are met with gentleness. This is a place for peaceful thoughts and quiet wisdom at the end of the day. Tonight, there is no need to rush toward answers. We will sit beside the question together. If you are here with this thought tonight, then perhaps something in you is tired of carrying it alone. Not only the question itself, but the feeling that follows it. The feeling that life should have become clearer by now. The feeling that there should be a shape to your days that feels meaningful and true, and yet some nights it seems to slip away the moment you try to hold it. It is a very human thing, this longing to understand why you are here and what your life is for. It is ancient. It belongs to the young and the old, to the hopeful and the weary, to people surrounded by others, and to people lying alone in a dark room with their own breathing and a mind that will not quite settle. And perhaps what makes this question so heavy is not only that it is large, it is that it touches so many tender places at once. It touches regret, it touches time, it touches the fear that you may have missed something. It touches the ache of seeing other lives from the outside and imagining that those lives make more sense than your own. It touches the part of you that wants to matter and the softer part beneath that which simply wants to belong. It touches the old wish to feel that your life is not accidental, not wasted, not empty, but quietly woven into something real and good. At night, these questions do not always come as thoughts. Sometimes they come as sensations, as a pressure in the chest, as a strange restlessness in the limbs, as a mind moving from one memory to another, looking for some clue that was missed. A conversation from years ago, a decision that still hurts to remember, a path not taken, a path taken for too long, a version of yourself that once seemed certain and now feels far away. The room is quiet, but inside you there is movement, not dramatic movement, not loud movement, just that small, persistent turning of the heart that asks, what is all this for? You do not need to answer that tonight. That may be the first peaceful thought worth keeping close. You do not need to answer your whole life tonight. You do not need to gather every loose thread and tie them into one perfect meaning before sleep can come. There are some questions that do not grow kinder when they are chased. There are some mysteries that open only when they are approached with softness, the way one might approach a frightened animal or a sleeping child, or a memory that still bruises when touched too quickly. Perhaps tonight is not for solving. Perhaps tonight is for listening in a different way. Not the sharp listening that strains for certainty, but the quieter kind that lets things reveal themselves slowly. The kind of listening that does not demand a grand answer, but notices a slight easing in the body, a gentler pace in the mind, a thought that feels less like a command and more like a hand resting lightly on your shoulder. The strange thing about purpose is that many people were taught to imagine it as something dramatic, a calling, a mission, a clear and shining road that appears before a chosen person and tells them exactly where to go. And if life does not feel like that, if your days feel ordinary, complicated, repetitive, interrupted, or unclear, then it becomes easy to wonder whether you have failed to hear what others have somehow received. It becomes easy to believe that purpose belongs to people with certainty, with talent, with confidence, with stories that sound impressive when spoken out loud. But most human lives do not unfold that way. Most lives are not lit by constant revelation. Most lives are made of mornings and errands and moments of doubt and meals that must be made and messages that are answered too late and feelings that have no easy name. Most lives contain seasons of grief, seasons of waiting, seasons of recovery, seasons of doing what must be done without any music rising in the background to say that this right here is meaningful. And yet these ordinary seasons are still life. They are still your one precious life. They are not the empty hallway before the real thing begins. It can be painful to admit how much comparison shapes this question. Even when you try not to compare, the mind does it quietly. It looks at the visible parts of other people's lives and places them next to the hidden parts of your own. Their outer certainty beside your inner doubt. Their finished chapter beside your unfinished sentence. Their public direction beside your private confusion. And because human beings are so skilled at hiding their uncertainty, it can seem for a while as if everyone has found a reason for being here except you. But you are not alone in this. So many people move through life carrying an invisible feeling that they are late to themselves. They may smile, they may work, they may care for others, they may seem capable and composed. Yet somewhere inside, there is still a quiet question. Is this it? Am I where I am meant to be? Have I become who I was supposed to become? What if the deepest part of my life has not even started yet? What if I have already passed it without knowing? These thoughts can feel almost embarrassing because they sound so large and because much of modern life rewards a different tone. It rewards speed. It rewards certainty. It rewards the kind of person who speaks as if they know exactly what they want and where they are going. So when your own experience is softer, slower, more uncertain, more tangled, it may seem like something to hide. You may feel a private shame about not knowing, a shame about still searching, a shame about waking in the night with questions that other people seem to have outgrown. Yet there is a quiet dignity in not pretending. There is something deeply honest in admitting that being alive is strange, and that it is not always obvious what one is supposed to do with such a gift and such a burden. Long ago, Socrates asked a simple question that has outlived empires and arguments and countless clever ideas. He asked how one ought to live, not how one ought to impress, not how one ought to rise above all others, not how one ought to construct the most polished identity, just how one ought to live. There is something so tender in that question when heard at night. It sounds less like a test and more like companionship. It suggests that a meaningful life may begin not with a grand answer, but with an honest way of paying attention. How ought you live? Perhaps the question is gentler than it first appears. Perhaps it does not ask for brilliance. Perhaps it asks for sincerity. Perhaps it asks what kind of presence you bring to your own hours. What kind of truth you are willing to tell yourself. What kind of care you offer when no one is watching. What you choose when there is no applause to guide you. The examined life, in its deepest sense, may not be a life of endless analysis. It may simply be a life in which you do not abandon your own inner reality. A life in which you dare to notice what hurts, what matters, what feels false, what feels alive, and what keeps returning softly to ask for your attention. It is not failure to be confused. It is not failure to be in process. It is not failure that your life does not yet fit into a clean sentence. Human beings are not finished objects. You are not a solved equation. You are not a product to be completed and displayed. You are a living thing, and living things move through weather. They lose leaves. They heal slowly. They bend toward light. They go dormant. They begin again in ways that are not always visible from the outside. Sometimes the search for purpose becomes heavier than the absence of purpose itself. The pressure to find meaning can become its own kind of suffering. The pressure says there must be one answer. It says the answer must be impressive. It says it must be found soon. It says time is running out. It says your life is being judged, even in private, even in bed, even now. And under such pressure, the heart tightens. Curiosity turns into fear. Wonder turns into self-measurement. The quiet mystery of being alive becomes a performance review no one can pass. So maybe tonight, the first softening comes here, in releasing the demand that purpose must arrive as a grand event, in allowing the possibility that meaning has never needed to shout, in allowing the possibility that the most important truths in a life are often the ones that speak quietly, and repeat themselves over many years. Not with fireworks, not with certainty, but with a kind of humble persistence. Think of the parts of life that matter most, and how often they arrive without spectacle. A hand placed on your back when you were struggling. A meal made for someone tired. A long drive to visit a person who needed company. The small relief of being forgiven. The strange holiness of staying present beside someone in pain when there was nothing clever to say. These moments are rarely announced as purpose. They do not arrive in golden light. They arrive in kitchens and hallways and waiting rooms and quiet cars. They arrive in the middle of ordinary days. And still, they shape a life. There is a gentle sadness in realizing how often we overlook the small forms of meaning because we have been trained to notice only the large ones. We notice achievements, milestones, titles, turning points. But what of the invisible labor of being a good presence in someone's life? What of the steady work of not hardening after disappointment? What of the daily courage of getting up into a life that still hurts and offering something decent to the world anyway? These things do not always look important from a distance. They do not always create a story others would admire. Yet they may contain more soul than many louder forms of success. Viktor Frankl, who knew something about suffering that few of us can fully understand, wrote that meaning can still be found even when life is painful, unfinished, or uncertain. He did not speak of meaning as something reserved for ideal conditions. He did not say it appears only when life is beautiful and the road is clear. He saw that even in harshness, even in limitation, something within the human being remains able to respond. Not control everything, not redeem everything all at once, but respond. There is a deep peace in that idea tonight. Your purpose may not always be a path laid out ahead of you. Sometimes it may be the quality of your response to what is here. Your response to loss, your response to delay, your response to the loved one who is difficult to understand, your response to the season of life that is not what you planned, your response to your own wounds, your response to a world that is beautiful and broken at the same time. There is meaning in what you create, yes, but there is also meaning in how you meet what cannot be chosen. In how you carry sorrow without letting it become cruelty, in how you continue to notice beauty after being disappointed, in how you speak softly when harshness would be easier, in how you remain human in circumstances that invite numbness. You may have spent years waiting for purpose to feel larger than this, larger than simple decency, larger than endurance, larger than making the bed, answering the call, taking the medicine, washing the cup, showing up for the shift, paying attention to the child, visiting the parent, feeding the animal, trying again with the difficult conversation, choosing not to speak the cruel sentence that rises for a moment in pain. But perhaps these are not the lesser parts of life. Perhaps they are life. Perhaps meaning is woven through them so deeply that we miss it only because we keep looking past them. There are people whose purpose, at least for a season, is hidden inside care. Not glamorous care, not celebrated care, just the steady, repetitive acts that keep another life from falling apart. There are people who wake during the night for someone else. There are people who sit in hospital rooms and notice the small changes in a face. There are people who remember which medicine must be taken and when. There are people who keep the house running while grief hangs in the air like weather. There are people whose days are built not around self-expression, but around responsibility and tenderness and persistence. And because such labor is quiet, it is often mistaken for the background of life rather than one of its deepest meanings. There are also seasons when purpose is simply to remain present in a chapter you never would have chosen, to remain kind when your heart is tired, to remain available to your own life even when it feels dimmer than it once did. There is meaning in remaining. Not forever in what harms you, not in silent acceptance of what should be changed, but in the noble act of staying awake to your life when escape would feel easier. Sometimes the soul is not asking for a grand reinvention. Sometimes it is asking for faithful presence in a difficult hour. And still, it is understandable if some part of you resists this, because there is a longing in the human heart not only to care, but to know, not only to do what is needed, but to feel the shape of your life from the inside, to sense that you are moving in the right direction, to feel the days gathering into something true. This longing is not foolish, it is tender, it deserves respect. Yet perhaps the way it is answered is quieter than expected. Why do the most meaningful things so often arrive without applause? Why do the things that form us most deeply happen in private, in repetition, in hidden corners of time? Why is so much of a human life built not from moments of triumph, but from moments of attention? It may be because the soul recognizes meaning differently than the ego does. The ego asks how visible, how impressive, how secure. The soul asks whether something is real, whether it deepens love, whether it opens truth, whether it keeps you close to what matters when life becomes stripped down and plain. You may remember certain days of your life that did not look important while they were happening. An ordinary afternoon with someone who is no longer here, a quiet walk before a loss you could not yet imagine, a small apology that repaired something fragile, a day when you chose honesty even though it cost you, a night when you stayed with a frightened person until their breathing slowed. At the time, perhaps these moments looked small. Only later did they begin to glow. Only later did you see that meaning often enters life wearing ordinary clothes. And perhaps one reason purpose feels so hard to name is that it is not always one thing. It changes shape with time. What mattered deeply at 20 may not be what matters at 40. What mattered before grief may not be what matters after grief. What mattered before parenthood, before illness, before heartbreak, before healing, before loss, before forgiveness, may not remain the same. Life keeps asking new questions, and the heart keeps growing new capacities to answer them. So if your purpose feels different now than it once did, that may not mean it has weakened. It may mean it has matured. Still, there is another form of suffering that enters when the mind tries to force purpose into a shape. You can feel it when you try too hard to control the future, when every decision begins to carry the impossible weight of defining your whole life, when each year becomes a verdict, when you try to think your way into certainty, plan your way out of vulnerability, organize your way into peace. This kind of effort is understandable. It often comes from fear. Fear of wasting time, fear of making the wrong choice, fear of discovering too late that you lived according to expectations that were never truly yours. There is an exhaustion that comes from gripping life too tightly. The body knows it, the mind knows it, the spirit knows it. You can feel it in the constant inner checking. Am I behind? Am I on track? Am I becoming someone worth becoming? Am I choosing correctly? Should I have stayed? Should I have left? Should I be doing more? Should I be different by now? It is like trying to hold water in a clenched fist. The tighter the grip, the less remains. Lao Tzu once offered the image of water, and there is something especially restful about that image when the night is quiet. Water does not strain to be itself. It does not force its way into greatness. It flows low. It yields. It finds the shape of what is before it. It moves around rocks, through narrow places, across distances that would seem impossible if judged one moment at a time. And still, it reaches where it must. There is wisdom in that for a tired mind. Perhaps purpose is not always conquered. Perhaps sometimes it is entered the way water enters the world, through softness, through persistence, through a quiet faithfulness to one's nature. This does not mean passivity. It does not mean never choosing, never speaking, never changing course. It means something subtler. It means not confusing force with truth. It means not assuming that the loudest impulse is the deepest one. It means learning that a life can move in the right direction without constant aggression. Some things in you may know their pace better than your panic does. Some forms of growth happen only when you stop pulling at them. You can see this in many living things. A tree does not become itself by hurrying. A wound does not heal because it is ordered to heal by mourning. Trust does not deepen because it is pressured. Grief does not leave on command. Love does not reveal its fullest shape in a day. The soul perhaps has more in common with gardens than with machines. It grows in seasons. It rests between changes. It needs darkness as well as light. It cannot be rushed without being harmed. Maybe that is why so many people feel tired in their search for purpose. They are trying to produce an answer in a part of life that asks for listening. They are trying to dominate a mystery that might unfold only through relationship. They are trying to drag the river rather than float within it. So much suffering grows from the belief that the future must be secured before the present can be inhabited. But the present is the only place where life is actually touching you. The future is imagined. The present is where breath enters and leaves. The present is where your hands are. The present is where the next true thing can happen. What if purpose is not a trophy waiting at the end of all your effort? What if it is also a way of moving? A way of being in contact with life that is less violent, less suspicious, less desperate. A way of noticing what draws you towards sincerity. A way of listening for what feels alive without demanding that it explain itself immediately. There are times when the next step in a life becomes clear only after the person has stopped interrogating it and started living more honestly in the step already here. This may be especially hard if you have spent many years surviving. Survival can teach the nervous system to brace, to scan, to mistrust stillness, to believe that any moment of not knowing is dangerous. If that is true for you, then no wonder the question of purpose feels tense rather than peaceful. No wonder you want certainty before you can rest. Some part of you may believe that uncertainty itself is a threat, and yet, slowly, gently, perhaps tonight, can offer another experience. The experience of not knowing everything and still being safe enough to breathe, safe enough to soften the jaw, safe enough to let the blankets hold some of the weight. A calmer relationship to purpose does not come only from better ideas. It also comes from a kinder pace. From allowing your life to reveal itself rather than forcing it into a shape that looks impressive from the outside. From noticing where strain has replaced truth. From noticing where busyness has become a substitute for belonging. From noticing where the hunger to matter has become so sharp that it prevents you from tasting the simple meaning already present in your days. And beneath all this, there is often loneliness. A very old loneliness. Because beneath the wish to find purpose is often another wish entirely. The wish to feel connected. The wish to feel that your inner life has a place in the world. The wish to feel seen not only for what you do, but for what you are. The wish to feel that the hidden parts of you are not mistakes. That your tenderness has somewhere to go. That your longing is not absurd. That your life belongs even before it is fully understood. Many people live with the sense that large parts of themselves were never fully welcomed. Certain feelings were too much. Certain dreams were impractical. Certain sensitivities were mocked or ignored. Certain kinds of softness did not seem useful in a world that preferred harder shapes. So over time, pieces of the self are tucked away, not destroyed, just hidden. Hidden in order to survive. Hidden in order to be loved. Hidden in order to function. And later, when the question of purpose rises, it may not be asking only what you should do. It may be asking where those hidden parts have gone. Carl Jung wrote about the shadow, and while the word can sound dark, there is something very tender in the idea. The shadow is not only the worst in us, it is also what was pushed aside, the unlived self, the abandoned feeling, the capacities that did not fit the life we learned to perform. There may be talents there, yes, but also grief, anger, tenderness, imagination, vulnerability, unsaid truth. Purpose, then, may not be only a future mission. It may also be a return, a slow reunion with the parts of you that have been waiting quietly in the dark, not to take over, but to be acknowledged. Maybe this is why some people feel a strange sadness, even in lives that appear successful. because outer progress does not always heal inner exile. A person can do many things right and still feel disconnected from the deeper currents of their own being. They can become admired while remaining unknown to themselves. They can build a life that works and still lie awake, feeling that something essential has been left outside the door. Not because they are ungrateful, not because they are broken, but because the soul cannot be replaced by performance for very long. If there are parts of you that feel distant tonight, you do not need to drag them into the light all at once. You do not need a perfect breakthrough. You do not need a dramatic reinvention. You can begin more simply, by noticing what quietly stirs in you, what kinds of beauty still touch you, what conversations make you feel more real rather than less, what forms of falseness leave you tired, what memories still carry a strange warmth, what younger parts of you once loved before practicality, fear, or disappointment taught them to fall silent. Perhaps there was a time when you were naturally drawn towards something that felt deeply alive, not necessarily something grand. Maybe it was drawing, listening, building, helping, wandering, studying, writing, singing, caring, watching clouds, asking questions, making things beautiful, comforting frightened creatures, sitting with old people, reading stories, repairing broken objects, noticing small details others missed. Childhood is not always a map, but sometimes it leaves clues, not because you are meant to live exactly as you once imagined, but because the early self often knew something about your natural way of meeting the world before fear taught you to become efficient instead of true. Of course, life changes us. Responsibilities arrive. Loss arrives. Necessity arrives. Not every early longing can remain in the same form, but the feeling beneath it may still matter. If you once loved drawing, perhaps the deeper thread was not drawing itself, but attentiveness, beauty, patience, seeing. If you once loved taking things apart, perhaps the deeper thread was curiosity, structure, repair. If you once loved caring for small animals, perhaps the deeper thread was protection, gentleness, devotion. Purpose may not ask you to recover an exact past life. It may ask you to listen for the living quality hidden inside what once made you feel quietly whole. There is a loneliness in carrying unlived parts of yourself. You may feel it as a vague ache, a sense that your days are functional but not intimate, that you can manage them but you do not always inhabit them, that you are present in body and absent in spirit. This loneliness can make the question of purpose more urgent, because what you want is not only direction. You want reunion. You want to feel less divided. You want to stop walking past your own life as if it belongs to someone else. Yet not all becoming has to happen at once. That may be another gentle truth for tonight. You do not need to become your full self by sunrise. The hidden parts of you do not need to be forced into a confession. They can be met the way dawn meets a room, slowly, without accusation. It may be enough just to say inwardly, I know there is more in me than I have been able to live. I know some part of me has been waiting. I am willing to sit quietly enough to begin hearing it again. As this question softens, another peaceful thought can enter. Purpose may have less to do with becoming extraordinary and more to do with becoming undivided. Less to do with constructing a brilliant identity and more to do with living with increasing honesty. Less to do with impressing the world and more to do with no longer abandoning what is most inwardly true. There is a calm in that. The calm of realizing that a life can be meaningful even when it is modest, as long as it is real. And then there is the present hour, which so many restless minds treat as an inconvenience. The present hour can seem too small to hold the question of purpose, too ordinary, too unfinished. We imagine that meaning lives in some future arrangement of life. Once the right work is found, the right healing completed, the right clarity secured, the right self finally achieved. And so the current hour becomes something to tolerate on the way to the real thing. But what if that belief keeps us from touching the very life we are asking about? Marcus Aurelius, writing not from comfort but from the burden of leadership and the nearness of mortality, kept returning to a simple discipline. Meet what is before you. Do the task of the hour with sincerity. Keep your character steady. Do not demand that the entire universe explain itself before you lift your hand to the next honest act. There is such grounding in that thought. Purpose does not have to float high above your life as an abstract ideal. It can live in the way you inhabit the exact piece of life that is here. One conversation can hold purpose, one apology, one honest answer, one small act of restraint, one meal prepared with care, one duty done without resentment if possible, or at least without adding needless bitterness, one effort to listen fully, one refusal to let pain become contempt, one moment of choosing truth over convenience. These may sound modest, but modesty does not make them empty. In fact, much of human dignity is built exactly here, in small acts carried out with a clean heart. There is a temptation to think that if something does not transform your whole life, it hardly matters. But whole lives are shaped by accumulations, by repeated tones of being, by the kind of attention you bring again and again. A person becomes gentle, not in one shining moment, but through many choices not to harden. A person becomes trustworthy, not through one promise, but through a pattern of showing up. A person becomes aligned not by announcing who they are, but by slowly living in a way that makes inner and outer life less divided. You may not always feel the meaning of these acts while you are doing them. Purpose does not always come with emotion attached. Sometimes it feels plain. Sometimes it feels like duty. Sometimes it feels like the next necessary thing, and yet the plainness of an act does not cancel its worth. The hand that steadies another person, the patience offered to a child, the truth spoken quietly, the self-restraint practiced in a moment of anger, the continued care for your body even when you are weary of carrying it. All these things matter. They matter because they are ways of saying yes to life as it is actually being lived. There can be great relief in no longer asking every day to reveal your destiny. Most days are not designed for that. Most days are not verdicts. They are simply places to live, to breathe, to notice, to choose small faithfulness over dramatic certainty. The burden of extraordinary purpose can make a person overlook the quiet nobility already present in ordinary existence. It can make one ashamed of simplicity. Yet simplicity is where much of life happens. Not because you failed to reach something larger, but because the fabric of human meaning is woven there. Perhaps one of the most restful thoughts about purpose is that you do not have to become remarkable in order to justify your existence. You do not have to earn the right to belong to life by producing a dazzling story. You are already in it, already of it, already carrying a human soul through human time, already loving imperfectly, hurting imperfectly, trying imperfectly, learning slowly, losing things, finding things, misunderstanding things, repairing what you can, grieving what you cannot keep. This is not lesser material. This is the very substance of being alive. And there is even tenderness in the fact that your life remains unfinished. So much suffering comes from wanting to see the whole pattern at once. But perhaps a human life can only be understood from within the step you are in, not from the imagined overview of all steps combined. You cannot live the entire meaning of your life tonight. You can only live tonight. You can only breathe tonight's breath. You can only be honest in tonight's inward company. And perhaps that is more than enough. There is also the quiet truth that purpose is often discovered backward. Looking ahead, life feels foggy. Looking back, certain threads begin to show. You see that what once felt random was preparing something, that a loss taught tenderness, that loneliness taught attention, that mistakes taught humility, that caring for one person taught you how deeply you were made to love, that years of uncertainty kept you from building a life too false to bear. Meaning is not always visible while the road is being walked. Sometimes it is visible only after the feet have carried you farther than the mind understood. This does not mean that all pain was necessary or beautiful. Some pain is simply painful. Some losses are cruel. Some chapters never become lovely in memory. Yet even then, something in the human being can still shape a response that carries dignity. Not because suffering is good, but because the soul remains capable of honesty, tenderness, and depth in the midst of what it never would have chosen. There is a sacred plainness in that, a refusal to let pain write the whole sentence. When you are tired, it may help to think less of purpose as a giant statement and more as a quiet orientation toward truth, toward love, toward steadiness, toward awareness, toward care, toward participation in the life that is already touching yours. Orientation is gentler than ambition. It does not demand that you conquer the whole landscape by morning. It only asks which way your heart is leaning and whether you can rest in that direction for now. Sometimes, too, the search for purpose becomes entangled with the wish to be free from regret. If only you knew your purpose clearly, perhaps then you could stop revisiting old choices, stop wondering who you might have been, stop holding imaginary versions of your life up against the one you actually lived. Regret has a way of making purpose feel urgent, because regret whispers that time has been misused and must now be redeemed all at once. But regret is also a form of love, in a way. It hurts because something mattered. It hurts because you cared. It hurts because part of you sees more clearly now than you did then. That clearer seeing is painful, but it is also evidence of growth. The self who regrets is not exactly the same self who made the choice. You are not standing in the same consciousness anymore. This does not erase consequence, but it does soften self-cruelty. It reminds you that a human life is a process of learning under conditions of limited vision. You did not begin life with perfect understanding. No one did. You made choices with the self you had at the time, within the fears, needs, hopes, wounds, and knowledge available then. Some choices led you into joy. Some led you into sorrow. Some created chapters you still do not know how to speak about. Yet even regret can become part of purpose if it makes the heart more humble, more compassionate, more awake. Not every wound becomes wisdom, but some do. Slowly, quietly, through years of living. Maybe one reason you are awake with this question tonight is that you do not want to live mechanically anymore. You do not want to move through time half asleep to your own existence. You want to feel that your days are not slipping past untouched. That wish is beautiful. It deserves gentleness, not pressure. The fear of wasting life can become so intense that it causes a person to miss the life already in their hands. So tonight, perhaps purpose begins by releasing panic and returning to contact. Contact with breath. Contact with body. Contact with memory. Contact with what your heart knows in its quieter voice. You might ask yourself very softly, not as a demand, but as a wondering, what feels real to me? Not what sounds impressive. Not what would make a good explanation. Not what would protect you from judgment. Just what feels real. What kind of life feels less false in your bones? What kind of conversation leaves you lighter rather than drained? What kind of work, even if tiring, does not leave you inwardly empty? What kind of beauty still reaches you? What kind of service feels like an extension of your humanity rather than a performance of goodness? These are not small questions, but they do not need to be answered tonight in a single flash. They can stay with you like quiet lanterns. You can let them warm the edges of things without demanding a full map. Many of the most important recognitions in life come gradually. A person notices what keeps returning, what they continue to care about even after trying to ignore it. What kind of life leaves them more inwardly arranged? What kind of compromise costs too much peace? What kind of presence feels like home? There is so much tenderness in the thought that maybe purpose is closer to home than you assumed. Closer to your natural way of loving. Closer to what you notice. Closer to what hurts you, because what hurts you often points toward what you value. Closer to what you cannot help caring about. Closer to the way your eyes soften around certain forms of beauty or suffering. closer to the kind of healing you needed and now long to extend, closer to the way you have learned to survive without becoming entirely closed. And if nothing feels clear tonight, that is all right too. Clarity is not the only gift. Sometimes the gift is simply a more peaceful relationship with uncertainty. The ability to say, I do not fully know, and I do not need to punish myself for that. I do not fully see the shape, and still I can live one day with sincerity. I do not have the whole answer, and still I belong to life. There is maturity in that. There is rest in that. The mind often imagines that not knowing means emptiness, but not knowing can also mean openness. It can mean that life is still alive around you, that the story is still moving, that you have not been reduced to one fixed role forever, that something in you is still growing, still listening, still becoming. A completely fixed identity may feel safe for a moment, but it can also become a cage. One of the quiet mercies of human existence is that it keeps changing us, even when change is difficult. This brings us toward another peaceful thought. Perhaps purpose is not a single answer because you are not a single finished thing. You are many seasons held together in one life. The child, the one who first hoped, the one who broke, the one who stayed, the one who left, the one who learned, the one who grieved, the one who forgave, the one who has not yet become visible even to you. Each season carries its own tasks, its own forms of meaning, its own lessons in love and reality. The Buddha taught that suffering grows when we cling to what is passing and demand that it remain fixed. This is true not only of possessions and relationships and youth, it is also true of identity. We suffer when we insist that we must define our life once and for all, then hold it there forever. But life is not still enough for that. You are not still enough for that. Purpose may not be something to pin down and preserve unchanged. It may be something you carry like a lamp through changing weather, not a monument, not a prison, a lamp. A lamp gives enough light for the next part of the path, not the whole journey, not the entire landscape, just enough for the step that matters now. There is great mercy in that image. You do not need a flood of certainty. You may only need enough light for this season, enough to care for what is in front of you, enough to tell the truth where truth is needed, enough to refrain from harm where harm is tempting, enough to remain open to beauty where beauty still appears, enough to keep company with your own soul a little more honestly than before. Impermanence can feel frightening when the mind wants security, yet it also carries gentleness. Because if all things are changing, then your confusion can change. Your grief can change. Your numbness can change. Your old definitions can change. The life that feels impossible to understand tonight may not always feel this way. The parts of you that seem silent may speak later. The road that looks empty may hold meaning not yet visible from here. Change is not only what takes away, it is also what reveals. You do not need to force yourself into a final sentence. Perhaps that is what some part of you has been trying to do for years. To write one statement that settles the question forever. This is who I am. This is what my life means. This is the one path. But human beings are more like poems than slogans, more like rivers than statues, more like weather than stone. You can be deeply real without being easily summarized. In fact, some of the truest lives refuse to fit into one clear explanation. There is peace in allowing the mystery to remain kind, not an empty mystery, not a cold one, a warm mystery, one that does not mock your questions or withhold meaning out of cruelty, one that simply refuses to become smaller than life really is. You may never arrive at a final answer that removes all uncertainty, but you can arrive at a gentler way of being inside the question, a way that feels less like exile and more like trust. Trust does not mean that nothing hurts. It does not mean every path will make sense. It does not mean you will never feel lost again. It means that you begin to sense, however faintly, that life is not only demanding something from you, it is also carrying something for you. that meaning is not always manufactured by force of will. It also emerges through participation, through relationship, through attention, through the willingness to remain human in the midst of what cannot be fully understood. If you have been carrying the idea that purpose must always feel important, perhaps you can loosen that tonight. Sometimes purpose feels important. Sometimes it feels ordinary. Sometimes it feels radiant. Sometimes it feels like quietly folding laundry for someone you love. Sometimes it feels like declining to send a message written in anger. Sometimes it feels like getting through a difficult day without adding more harm. Sometimes it feels like beginning again after a mistake. Sometimes it feels like silence. Sometimes it feels like grief honored well. There are people whose purpose for a season is to heal, not to perform healing, not to package it into lessons, but simply to let their own life recover some wholeness. That may look unproductive from the outside. Slow days, fewer plans, more rest, more saying no, more listening inwardly, more tears, more boundaries, more patience with a body that has carried too much. Yet healing is not separate from purpose. To become less divided, less frightened, less ruled by old pain is also sacred work. There are people whose purpose for a season is to mourn, to let love express its cost, to learn how to live with an empty chair, an unanswered message, a familiar voice no longer entering the room. Mourning is not a delay in life. It is one of life's deepest forms of honesty. It changes the pace of everything. It narrows the horizon. It teaches a more patient tenderness. If grief has touched your search for purpose, then be gentle with the way your life has slowed. Grief is a teacher of priorities, though it is a hard teacher. There are people whose purpose for a season is to forgive. Not quickly, not artificially, not in a way that denies what happened, but in the slow sense of refusing to let the injury become the only language their heart can speak. Forgiveness may not restore what was lost. It may not reconcile what should remain apart, yet it can free a life from revolving forever around one wound. Even that, too, can be part of purpose. Not because pain was meant to happen, but because what you do with pain shapes the texture of your days. There are people whose purpose for a season is simply to learn how to receive love. This can be harder than giving it, to stop earning affection through perfection, to stop apologizing for needs, to stop mistrusting kindness, to let care touch the old places where you expected neglect. This is quiet work, invisible work, but no less profound for being invisible. A person who learns to receive love honestly may live differently in every relationship thereafter. Their life may become gentler for others simply because it has become gentler for themselves. There are people whose purpose for a season is to create, not for fame, not even for recognition, but because something in them needs to take form. A piece of music, a garden, a room arranged with care, a loaf of bread, a page written in the early morning, a small business built from attention and patience. Creation is not always loud. Sometimes it is intimate. Sometimes it is the soul making contact with the world through matter, time, and love. And there are people whose purpose for a season is simply to become more honest, to stop saying yes where they mean no, to stop laughing when something hurts, to stop shaping themselves into whatever is easiest for others to accept, to stop trading inner life for outer smoothness. Honesty can be a painful form of awakening because it asks you to see what has been tolerated too long. Yet it also returns energy to the self. It gathers scattered parts. It brings one closer to rest. As you lie here tonight, maybe you can feel how purpose is beginning to change shape. It is becoming less like a question asked by a judge and more like a question asked by a loving companion. Not, what have you accomplished, but what is your life asking of you now? Not, why are you not more impressive, but where is the truth that wants your company? Not, how do you secure your value forever, but how do you live this day, this season, this one human life with a little more presence and a little less fear? There may be things you still long for very much: clearer work, deeper love, healing, recognition, direction, courage. These longings matter, they are not foolish. But perhaps they can rest tonight without being silenced. They can be laid down for a few hours the way one sets down a heavy bag beside the bed. Not thrown away, not denied, just released from the hands for now. A longing set down is not a longing betrayed. It is simply a longing allowed to breathe. The body understands something the mind often forgets. That rest is not abandonment. Sleep is not neglect. Pausing the search is not the same as giving up on life. Even the heart, that faithful worker, beats through cycles of effort and release, tightening and softening, systole and diastole. The whole body is built on rhythm, not constant strain. Perhaps the soul is as well. Perhaps clarity sometimes arrives not because it was hunted, but because the exhausted mind finally became quiet enough to hear what had been present all along. You may think of times when your deepest knowing came that way, not through force, not through overthinking, but in a walk, a bath, a quiet morning, a conversation, a pause after tears, a long drive, a waking from sleep. The answer, or at least the next honest step, arrived when your grip loosened. That is not weakness. It is often how deeper wisdom enters. It does not compete well with panic. It tends to speak when there is some inner spaciousness. So tonight, your task is very small. Not easy, perhaps, but small. You do not need to define yourself. You do not need to solve the future. You do not need to make peace with every regret. You do not need to fully understand every wound. You do not need to know what the next 5 years mean. You do not need to justify your existence before sleep. You only need to let yourself be here, in this bed, in this breath, in this unfinished life that is still, even now, worthy of kindness. It may help to remember that your worth was never supposed to depend entirely on your clarity. A confused life can still be a precious life. A slow life can still be a meaningful life. A life interrupted by illness, caregiving, grief, poverty, divorce, depression, uncertainty, or recovery is not disqualified from significance. The soul does not measure importance in the same harsh ways the world often does. The soul notices love. It notices honesty. It notices endurance that does not become cruelty. It notices beauty still perceived after pain. If you have spent years feeling behind, perhaps you can ask gently, behind whom? Behind what version of life? Behind which invisible timeline? Human lives do not ripen on one schedule. Some people understand their work early and their heart later. Some understand love early and themselves later. Some build before they soften. Some soften before they build. Some lose much and then begin again. Some never stop beginning again. There is no single rhythm by which all worthy lives unfold. There is also a quiet illusion that purpose must remove suffering, that once you find the right path, life will click into place and the old ache will disappear. But even deeply meaningful lives contain sorrow, confusion, fatigue, and longing. Meaning does not erase the human condition. It only gives it depth. It gives pain a context of love. It gives labor a context of devotion. It gives uncertainty a context of trust. It does not make life neat. It makes it more inhabitable. The people you admire most, if you could enter their private thoughts at night, might not feel as certain as they seem. They may carry their own hidden ache, their own unfinished questions, their own fear of misusing time, their own private sense of inadequacy. It is one of the tender truths of being human that each person is carrying an inward life more vulnerable than their outer shape suggests. You are not uniquely lost. You are sharing in one of the oldest experiences there is. Maybe this helps the heart soften toward itself. Not in self-praise, not in sentimentality, but in simple mercy. You are a person trying to live, trying to love, trying to understand, trying to carry what has been given and what has been taken, trying not to become too hard, trying to be honest, trying to rest. This effort itself, however imperfect, is already part of the beauty of your life. The attempt matters, the sincerity matters, the returning matters. Sometimes people imagine that purpose is hidden only in what they give, but there is also purpose in what they witness. To be a witness to beauty is not nothing. To notice the moon through a window. To hear rain and feel less alone. To look at the face of someone you love and recognize that they too are passing through time and vulnerability and mystery. To sit with the reality of mortality and become more tender because of it. Witnessing is a form of participation. Attention itself is a kind of love. There is purpose in wonder, in allowing yourself to be moved by existence without immediately turning the experience into utility. Children understand this more naturally. They can stare at insects, shadows, the movement of water, the shape of clouds, the sound of a word. Adults are often hurried away from wonder into usefulness. But wonder is not useless. It widens the soul. It returns perspective. It loosens the ego's grip. It reminds you that you are part of something immense and alive, not merely a manager of tasks. There is purpose in delight too. Quiet delight, the taste of tea, the clean smell after rain, warm socks, fresh sheets, laughter that arrives at the right moment and asks nothing more of you than to receive it. Delight does not solve the great questions, but it does remind the body and mind that life is not made only of burdens. Sometimes a tired person needs less philosophy and more permission to notice one good thing without immediately feeling guilty for it. And yet even delight can feel complicated when a person is carrying heavy things. Joy may seem undeserved. Rest may feel suspicious. Peace may feel temporary and therefore painful. If that is true for you, let tonight be very simple. You do not need to feel radiant. You do not need to become serene. You do not need to transform your inner weather by force. It is enough to let one tense place soften a little. The forehead, the throat, the chest, the hands. It is enough to let one thought become less sharp. Purpose, perhaps, is not always found in intensity. Sometimes it is found in steadiness, in the quiet willingness to continue relating to life, to keep the thread unbroken, to wake and meet another day even after days that made no sense, to remain available to meaning even when meaning feels hidden. This is a humble kind of courage. It does not always feel dramatic. Often it feels like simply getting through. But getting through with some gentleness intact is no small thing. You may wonder what to do with the parts of your life that still feel wasted. Years that blur. Relationships that drained rather than deepened. Efforts that came to nothing. Time spent becoming someone you no longer wish to be. There is grief in this, real grief. Yet even here, life is rarely empty of use. What feels wasted may have taught discernment. It may have taught limits. It may have shown you what false peace costs. It may have revealed where you disappear in order to be accepted. Painful knowledge is still knowledge. And sometimes the soul uses even missteps as material for a truer life. Not all things can be redeemed neatly. It is important to say that softly and honestly. Some losses remain losses. Some years remain wounded years. But the fact that something cannot be made beautiful does not mean it cannot become meaningful. Meaning is wider than beauty. Meaning can include sorrow honored properly. It can include truth spoken late. It can include a harder-earned compassion. It can include the refusal to pass on what hurt you. It can include becoming the kind of person who recognizes pain in others because you have met it in yourself. There is such quiet dignity in being fully human, not invincible, not endlessly productive, not permanently certain, just human, a creature of breath and memory, of tenderness and confusion, of longing and limitation, of love and impermanence. To accept your humanity is not to settle for less. It is to stop demanding that life becomes something other than what it has always been. A mystery with moments of clarity, a burden with moments of beauty, a brief shining with many shadows around it. Sometimes what keeps the mind awake is the thought that time is moving and that purpose ought to have been resolved before now. But perhaps time is not only taking things from you, it is also refining the question. The purpose you once imagined may have been too narrow for the life you were actually meant to live. too dependent on approval, too dependent on certainty, too dependent on youth or freedom or a self untouched by loss. Time has a way of humbling those early ideas, and though humility can hurt, it can also make meaning more real. A more peaceful purpose is often less about proving and more about participating. Participating in love while you can. Participating in truth even when it costs something. Participating in beauty without trying to own it. Participating in service where service is yours to offer. Participating in your own healing rather than abandoning yourself. Participating in the strange and tender fact that you are here at all. Not forever, not with guarantees, but here. The pressure to define purpose perfectly can keep you from living it imperfectly. This is worth repeating gently. The pressure to define purpose perfectly can keep you from living it imperfectly. A person waiting to be certain before they begin may wait too long. But a person willing to begin with humility may find that meaning gathers around honest action, around care, around truthfulness, around a life less driven by image and more guided by depth. Perhaps that is why sleep sometimes comes more easily when the heart stops trying to settle the whole matter. The body senses that the struggle has paused. The mind no longer has to patrol the future so aggressively. There is room then for another mode of being, a slower mode, one that does not ask life to become clear all at once, one that lets a few truths be enough for now, that you are alive, that you have loved, that you have been hurt, that you have tried, that you are still becoming, that not knowing is not the same as being nothing. If you listen carefully, beneath the noisy demand for purpose, there may be another voice entirely, a softer one. It may say, I want to live in a way that feels true. I want to be less divided. I want to meet people with kindness when I can. I want to stop running from my own heart. I want to offer something real before my time is over. I want to notice beauty. I want to forgive what I can. I want to rest in the life I have rather than only yearning for the one I imagined. These are not small wishes. They may already contain more purpose than many grand declarations. Tonight you do not need to make a vow. You do not need to reinvent your life in bed. You do not need to rise tomorrow with a completely new identity. Let things be more natural than that. Let one thought sink quietly into you. That purpose may be less like a destination you win and more like a way of accompanying your own life, a way of walking with it honestly, a way of responding with as much love and steadiness as you can, a way of not looking away from what matters. Even your questions are part of your aliveness. The fact that you care about meaning is itself meaningful. The fact that you ache for truth suggests that some part of you is already in relationship with it. The fact that your heart is restless for a life that feels real means you have not become entirely numb. There is hope in that. Quiet hope. Not the loud kind that promises everything will soon make sense, but the calmer kind that says your longing is not empty. It is pointing. And if your life feels small tonight, remember that small does not mean shallow. A small room can hold deep love. A small routine can hold great care. A small kindness can alter the atmosphere of a day. A small truth can change the course of a relationship. A small act of honesty can return a person to themselves. A small prayer, even if spoken without certainty, can open a hidden chamber of the heart. Human life is not measured only in scale. Often it is measured in depth. Depth is what lets a brief life matter. Depth in seeing. Depth in loving. Depth in presence. Depth in the courage to be changed by reality rather than protected from it at all costs. You do not need endless years or perfect conditions to live with depth. You only need some willingness to stay awake to what is real. Some willingness to be taught by your own experience. Some willingness to let love soften what fear would close. Maybe there are relationships in your life that have shaped your sense of purpose more than any work ever has. People you have loved. People who have needed you. People who have changed you by leaving. People who brought out tenderness you did not know you carried. People who taught you through joy. People who taught you through pain. Human beings are often each other's purpose in ways that are too intimate and messy to fit into neat descriptions. To love and be changed by love may be among the deepest meanings of all. Love is not always sweet. Sometimes it is demanding. Sometimes it exposes selfishness. Sometimes it asks for patience when patience feels thin. Sometimes it breaks the heart. Sometimes it leaves a person more fragile and more beautiful at once. Yet even broken love can deepen a life. It can make you see the world with greater seriousness and greater tenderness. It can teach you the cost of indifference. It can reveal how much you need others and how much others need gentleness from you. There is purpose in being teachable by love, in letting it refine you, in letting it reveal where you still hide, where you still defend, where you still expect abandonment, where you still confuse closeness with danger. This is quiet work, nighttime work, soul work. It does not always show outwardly, but the inner shape of a person affects everything they touch. A heart made gentler by honest reflection brings a different presence into every room. The same is true of suffering. Not that suffering is good, not that it should be praised, but once it has entered a life, it can either harden the heart or deepen it. Sometimes both happen at different times. There are ways pain can make a person smaller, suspicious, brittle. There are also ways pain can enlarge compassion, patience, and depth. The choice is not always simple, and no one makes it perfectly, but it matters. The way you carry pain becomes part of the meaning of your life. This is why kindness matters so much, even though it is so often treated as secondary. Kindness is not decoration. It is one of the purest expressions of a soul that has understood something about being human. To be kind is to remember that everyone is carrying something unseen, that everyone is passing through time, fear, memory, and loss. That certainty is limited, and tenderness is precious. Kindness does not answer every philosophical question, but it may answer some of the most important human ones. When the night grows very quiet, meaning often returns to simple things: a hand on a blanket, the rhythm of breathing, the memory of someone's voice, the awareness that, for all your unanswered questions, you are still here, still held by gravity, still alive within a body that has worked so hard for you. Even now, your heart is beating without asking for praise. Your lungs are carrying air in and out. Your whole being is engaged in the humble labor of continuing. There is something sacred in that ordinary endurance. Perhaps no grand conclusion is needed. Perhaps the mind has been trying to turn life into something cleaner than it can ever be. But life may be truest when allowed to remain partly unresolved, a little open, a little mysterious, a little beyond the reach of full explanation. You can still live it well. You can still sleep inside it. You can still love, forgive, build, rest, grieve, notice, begin again. The mystery does not cancel the meaning. It is part of the meaning. And so, if purpose still feels far away tonight, let it be far away without making that distance an accusation. Some stars are only visible because they are far. Some truths need space. Some questions stay with us because they keep the heart alive and humble. You do not need to drag every answer close. You may simply let the night hold the distance for now. There is a kind of peace that comes when you stop asking your life to justify itself in one perfect sentence. Instead, you begin to sense that meaning is scattered all through it. In the ways you have loved imperfectly, in the wounds you did not choose but have tried not to pass onward, in the beauty you still notice, in the people you remember, in the times you remained, in the times you changed, in the quiet decencies no one applauded, in the regrets that made you more truthful, in the tenderness that survived. You may never say with total certainty, "This is my purpose," full stop. And maybe that is all right. Maybe a more human sentence would be, "This is how I am learning to live. This is how I am trying to love. This is what I cannot help caring about. This is the kind of person I hope to become. This is the truth I can offer today. This is the beauty I can still receive. This is the mercy I am trying to practice. This is the life I am still, slowly, saying yes to. As sleep comes closer, perhaps purpose can become lighter in your hands. Not a heavy stone you must carry all the time, but a small lamp beside the bed. It does not need to illuminate your whole life tonight. It only needs to glow softly enough for you to remember that you are not lost just because you are unfinished. You are not empty just because you are uncertain. You are not failing just because the answer is not final. Let the heart hear this in a quieter place. You are allowed to be in process, allowed to be changing, allowed to be tender, allowed to not know, allowed to outgrow old definitions, allowed to begin again even after many years, allowed to rest before understanding everything, allowed to belong to life without proving your right to be here through constant clarity or constant achievement. If the day has been heavy, let it loosen a little now. If the mind has been sharp, let it become softer around the edges. If regret has been circling, let it sit down for the night. If longing has been loud, let it become a quieter companion. If the future has been shouting, let the present answer with one simple breath. In, out, nothing forced, nothing solved. Just this ancient rhythm that has carried you through every confusion so far. There may still be sadness in you, and that is all right. Peace is not the absence of sadness. Sometimes peace is sadness held gently enough that it no longer has to fight for room. There may still be uncertainty in you, and that is all right. Rest does not require certainty. There may still be questions in you, and that is all right. Sleep can arrive before answers do. Often it does. You do not need to carry your whole life while you lie here. You do not need to hold every memory in active thought. You do not need to defend your worth to the silence. You do not need to build tomorrow tonight. The bed can hold your body. The darkness can hold the edges of the day. The night can hold what the mind cannot finish. And perhaps this is enough purpose for now. To let yourself be held. To allow the great machinery of striving to slow. To be one small human creature in a vast and quiet world, breathing under blankets, not because all questions are settled, but because you are tired and worthy of rest. There is holiness in rest too, in surrender, in trusting the world to continue turning while you sleep. You have loved where you could. You have endured what you had to. You have searched honestly in the ways you knew how. You have remained here through another day of being human. Let that be tender enough for tonight. Let what is unfinished remain unfinished without punishment. Let what is unclear remain unclear without shame. Let what still aches be wrapped in gentleness. The question of purpose does not leave simply because your eyes close. It will still be part of your life tomorrow and the next day, and perhaps in quieter ways for many years. But it does not need your full strength tonight. Tonight it can rest beside you like a folded letter, not yet opened completely. Important, yes, but not urgent at this hour, not above the need for peace. So let the breath slow, let the jaw soften, let the shoulders drop a little deeper into the place beneath them, let the hands unclench, let the forehead smooth, let the day lose its grip, let the mind become less interested in finishing and more willing to drift. There is nothing to prove now, nothing to achieve before sleep, nothing to become in the next few minutes except more at ease. Whatever purpose is, it is not so fragile that it disappears when you rest. Whatever meaning your life holds, it is not erased by uncertainty. Whatever is true for you will not be made truer by exhaustion. Let this night be kind. Let it be simple. Let it carry you gently away from the hard edges of thought. And if one last thought can stay with you as the room grows softer, let it be this. A meaningful life may not always look like a grand answer. It may look like a human being, imperfect and sincere, learning how to live with truth, with love, with change, with loss, with beauty, with mystery, and with an open enough heart to keep going. If that is what your life is, even in fragments, even in ways you cannot yet name, then perhaps purpose has been nearer than you knew. Now there is nothing more you need to do. Just rest here. Just breathe here. Just let the night carry what you no longer need to hold in your hands. And trust, as gently as you can, that your life does not lose its meaning when you fall asleep.